Hello and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansevieri.
And Amy Cornell.
And first off, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. If you're a new listener, welcome. We have 6 years worth of shows for you to go back. We actually got an email the other day, or a text rather, the other day from somebody who said, I just found your show and I'm going back and I'm listening to all of your other shows. So we have 6 years of them. So that's going to keep you pretty busy for a long time. If you are not part of our little texting group, text the word podcast to 888-402-8940. Tell us what you think of the show. Send us show ideas, questions, all the things. If you think we got it wrong, we talked about this a couple of shows ago. Tell us why we're wrong. Send us a note through the podcast. We always love to hear from our listeners. I know I say this all the time. I'm really excited about this show. I'm really excited about the show. Also, if you haven't already gotten your copy, Think Local, Sell Global is finally up on Amazon for sale. It's doing really well. I'm so excited about this book. So, and thank you all for those of you who supported during the pre-order and everything. That was all very exciting. So anyway, welcome. Amy, do you want to give us just a quick breakdown of why we both love this show so much, why we were so excited to do this show?
Yes. So what's great about this episode is that it also works with our recent episode on Amazon AI. They really do play off of each other a lot. But the crux of this is that, readers have more choices than ever before, and they are discovering books everywhere. And that is why strategic marketing is so important. Personal plug there, but truly. So we've got Amazon Book Talk, newsletters, podcasts, social media, Goodreads, AI recommendations, hence checking out, our previous episode, subscription platforms. They're getting information from everywhere and they have a ton of options, right? Like when you go to Amazon specifically, 50,000 plus books will show up in any particular genre that you might click on, right? It's success in getting found and getting chosen, which is maybe even more important. Like, yes, you need to be found, but you also want to be chosen, is really understanding what readers want and making it easy for them to recognize that your book fits their needs. And again, that is where a lot of the crossover with our AI episode comes into. So listening to both of these around the same time is really going to help all of this kind of land and make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So part of the reason why I really love this episode and why I was really excited about this episode is I think that it really tackles a lot of fallacies that are out there that when I've talked to authors at writers' conferences. So for an example, right? When we talk about authors doing competitive analysis, like we tell authors, okay, you want to do some competitive analysis. Where they focus on a lot of times is best-selling books, because that's kind of like the weird conversation that's like, you got to study bestseller lists. But the problem with that is that when there's nothing wrong with aspiring to be a bestseller. But when you're studying bestseller lists, you are literally comparing yourself to authors who are frankly at an entirely different level, right? So the James Patterson's, Stephen King's, all of these big names, just to throw out a couple of examples, these are authors who have benefited from years of brand recognition and frankly started their career in a whole different, when the market was wholly different, right? Yeah. Frankly, they started a lot of these really top best-selling authors, with the exception of, like some of the newer ones like Freida McFadden and et cetera, they started as even before there was an Amazon, right? So they have tons of momentum and media exposure. When I've taught classes and I love to talk about success leaves clues. So when I've taught classes on that particular topic, I will always encourage authors to find big names in their industry who aren't necessarily big names, who aren't brand recognized names, because those are the authors that are really, if you're trying to sort of learn from their success points, those are the best ones to go after. Amy, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest is that, successful authors that, have found success, I would say more recently. Obviously, we're not talking about the people that have been successful for over a decade, right? Like they're set. But people that are moving up the ranks, so to speak, and finding success with their work, they're not just studying books, right? They're not, like Penny said, they're not just studying best-selling books. They're not just studying best-selling authors. They're really coming at it from a perspective of understanding why readers are going after certain books and what works in their marketplace.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And do you want to take the first point under our second segment? Because I think this will really help to drive home kind of the introduction to the show.
Yes. And this is something that I think might surprise some of you listening, is that readers want familiarity before originality. So where you're going like, wait, but you guys have talked about like what makes me different, what makes it unique. Yes, that is important. But at the same time, there is a difference between the book you create and how you sell it. And I think that's an important distinction too. So yes, you want to create a book that is unique and different and that offers something that is, specifically branded to you, but it needs to be familiar enough to the readers that are already there and hungry for books. So readers, and again, this matches well with our last episode, readers want to understand what kind of experience they're buying. They're at that point, they want to know what to expect. They're not specifically focused on, I want it to be entirely different from everything else I've ever read. That's really not how people shop, right?
Right, exactly.
Yep. The familiarity is what makes somebody feel more confident that your book is for them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
The originality comes after, like the originality is what sticks in their minds. And honestly, the originality, the sweet spot there is what gets them to recommend it to a friend or to write that fabulous review or to come back for your next book.
Right, exactly. And one of the things that when we talk to authors who come to us and they feel like, they want to do more marketing for their book because they feel, it hasn't been successful. And look, the marketing and publicity is our business. That's what we do. That's what we've done collectively for almost, I guess, over 30 years between the two of us. The problem is that authors oftentimes come to us with books that are problematic only because they didn't adhere to genre expectations, right? They wanted to challenge those expectations, or in some cases, they're trying to create a new genre, which we've done entire shows on that topic. Successful authors understand genre expectations. And if you have written a book that doesn't adhere to, so as Amy said, the familiarity of a particular genre and what readers expect, because readers will take risks on new books only if the book presents itself in a way that feels familiar. Right? That adheres to what their genre expectations are. And that's where the disconnect oftentimes happens with authors, is they want to be different. And by different, they think, I'm going to create either a genre that doesn't exist, or I'm going to create a twist on an existing genre because I want to be a trendsetter. And that never really works out well, unfortunately.
Right. And if you ever caught yourself saying, internal monologue going like, they'll get it once they start reading.
Nope.
They won't get that far.
They won't get that far.
They won't get that far. So the clarity beats the cleverness. Like Penny said, readers respond to books they understand quickly. And top selling books are often painfully clear about who they're for, what experience they offer, and why readers are going to enjoy it. 1, 2, 3. Like, it sounds so simple, but it's amazing how easy it is to miss the mark on the clarity around those 3 points.
Yeah, exactly. Because once you create confusion, you create hesitation. And once you create hesitation, you've lost your sale. I understand. The thing about it is, and I do feel for authors, because you and I talk to enough of them that we know that they feel the pressure of the industry that's out there and how many books are published, and oh my gosh, I have to be different. And so I want to be, I want to be clever, I want to be unique, and hence, the genre that isn't really a genre where there's really no fit for it on Amazon, or they want to be just super clever and they want to create a book cover that doesn't look anything like the industry standard that readers expect. You get this hesitation, and that's where books oftentimes struggle. So consistency, that's the other piece of this too. So consistency builds confidence.
I know. I feel like we need the like clapping sound effects for this because I love this one.
I do. I love this one too. Successful authors create consistency across covers, descriptions, websites, social media, series branding, author messaging, right? And this is a really big one. We have done shows individually on all of these topics. So if you've listened to us for a while, you've probably unpacked them with us. If you haven't, or if you want to go back, you can find all of them in the library on our website, certainly. But these are really important things because readers feel, you have to build reader confidence, especially when you're first starting up. And big best-selling authors, I'm not talking again, that's distinct to like the big brand names who existed before there was Amazon. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about authors who just do really, really well consistently, who aren't necessarily household names. They understand that readers are more comfortable buying when everything feels cohesive and intentional. Right?
Absolutely. And I think we all do that in our everyday lives when we're shopping. It's, across the board when we decide what brands we trust, what websites we buy from, there are confidence clues everywhere. And that absolutely applies to your retail pages and your bookshelf on Amazon and how all of it works together. Shoppers notice that. They absolutely do. So if each one of your books shows up like, you were an entirely different person that day you decided to publish, that eats away at their confidence.
Yeah, exactly. And, to that end, and we're kind of sort of saying the same thing, readers consistently look for risk reduction. To my point, readers are risk averse.
Absolutely.
Because it's not so much, and Amy, you've talked about this many times in our episodes, it's not so much the cost of the book, because generally, that's pretty inconsequential, right? But it's the investment of time that you as the author and the book is certainly asking for, right?
Yeah, very few of us have just extra time on our hands to take chances on authors we've never heard of that don't have a ton of reviews yet, whose cover may be a little iffy. Now I'm going down, a path, but truly, if you hit all those key points and you show up with confidence and professionalism, you're already so far ahead of the other unknown authors that are, presenting themselves either on Amazon or through all the other channels we talked about where people are discovering books. That level of professionalism, consistency, building that confidence, reducing the risk, even just visually and how you present your work is huge.
Right, exactly. And I'll tell you something. This is something that I actually obsess over. And Amy knows I really obsessed over this with my, Think Local, Sell Global book. I obsessed over that book to the point that it was sort of bordering on maybe unhealthy. But I also know that the market that I am trying to appeal to is maybe feeling a little bit burnt out. Like they've tried a bunch of stuff and everything seems all shiny and new and then it doesn't work and blah, blah, blah. So I take that risk reduction very seriously when I put these books out there. All of them. Like it's not just for this local book. Every single book becomes an experiment and obsession, which I realize is not very healthy, but that is the thing that, these authors that you really aspire to emulate, that's the thing that they also invest a lot of time in, is making sure that the reader is getting enough reassurances through credibility and professional presentation and all the things. Okay, so this is a big one. So I really love segment 3, and I know Amy and I have very strong feelings about this. I'm going to start this. Amy, I want you to carry this over the finish line because we could both talk about this for probably an hour.
Yeah.
The market is trying to tell you, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I get it, I don't really know what to do, I promise you, your market has already told you what it wants.
Yes.
The market leaves clues everywhere. And there's evidence of what you need to change, and you need to listen to that evidence. Amy, sorry, I could go on an hour for this because I think this is a really important piece of this show.
Right. So you have to pay attention to what readers are buying.
Yep.
What they're saying in reviews, what they're recommending, bestseller lists. Believe it or not, it's worth checking on these, periodically, because believe it or not, bestseller lists are not always dominated by household names.
Mm-mm.
You would be surprised at the books that will pop up on there. So it is not that, holy grail that is wildly unattainable. You will see up and coming authors on the bestseller list all the time. Those are really important to pay attention to. Category rankings, for sure, that matters. And then books that people keep talking about. This is where, I'm sorry if you're not a social media person, that's fine, no judgment. But I will say, if you are on social media, there's a lot to be gleaned from what people are talking about on social as well. And not just because somebody did, like an influencer did a post on it, but dig into some of the comments, because honestly, that's where I get a lot of my stronger insight, Penny, is. So if I see that somebody recommended a book, it's like, okay, well, you've got a book account. Of course you're recommending books, right? But when I dig into the comments, I find it so fascinating what people have actually said, if they've read the book already, or if they started it, or if they're partway through it, or if they fit, you know what I mean? I find that kind of insight way more valuable than even what the influencer said. So
yeah, exactly.
Little ad site there, read comments. If you are on social and you're trying to do some research on there, definitely read what people are saying about the book beyond just the influencer.
Right, exactly. And I think that, studying market neighbors, not market giants, is really where you want to be, to Amy's point, right? Take a look and see what the rising authors are that you've never heard of. And as I said, success leaves clues. So start to look at what they're doing, how they're being presented. Maybe even authors with a similar catalog size. If you have a number of books out already and you feel like you're struggling. Authors who are doing well, absolutely pay attention to and obsess over. There's a lot of things when it comes to marketing that Amy, and again, if you've listened to the show for any length of time, that Amy and I don't really give a lot of credence to. But this is not one of them. Because if your starting point is not solid, you're not going to finish solid either.
Exactly. And I think another point that people, in addition to reading the comments on social media posts that, influencers initiate, I think another area that a lot of people don't look into enough is other books that their reviewers have reviewed, Penny.
Yeah.
If you get a great review, awesome, congrats, those are amazing. Click on that person's profile and check to see if they're a pretty consistent reader and the kind of books they're reading. And that could be some great market analysis too, that you may not typically follow that path. But if somebody really enjoyed your book and they were thoughtful in their review, go see what else they read. And you're going to find some success clues, I guarantee you, on some of those other retail pages and those author brands as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, it's people ask us all the time, what's the secret to selling more books? What the secret? They want to know the secret marketing tactics, as if Amy and I are keeping these secret tactics only for a select few people and you're not getting them. That is absolutely not what we're doing. It is the secret marketing is that marketing is not really the secret. The secret is you got to start strong. You have to pay attention to your market. You have to have a genre. We're not talking about copying what other authors are doing. Let it inspire your own path, right? You don't want to become identical to other authors out there. Then you're just like AI book, ChatGPT book guy that we talked about last year, who's just out there generating like 50 or 60 books a year written by ChatGPT and copying everybody else. That's a non-starter. What we're suggesting in the show is start to follow authors who are, maybe even independent authors or newer authors who are seeing some really astounding success early on in their career, or maybe have had success consistently throughout their books and continue to do well, and see what they're doing. See how they're communicating with their readers, what their reviews are saying. And the problem is, here's the other piece of it, though, too, is that a lot of authors that I talk to, some authors are really dedicated to this, but a lot of authors, then there's a whole set of authors that I talk to who aren't really they're not paying attention to market signals, but they're also not clear on what their market is. And if you're unclear about what your market is, that is also a non-starter, because there's no way for you to do any kind of smart or cohesive research in your area.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Successful authors don't know more about books or about, like Penny said, about secret marketing tactics. They really just understand more about who their readers are, because it really makes everything that they do so much simpler, so much more thoughtful, and so much more personable. And that's why they get the conversions that they do, because the people they're trying to reach immediately go, this person gets me. They're writing books that I want to read. I'm in, you know?
Right, exactly. And this is also part of the reason why we've always said throughout other shows, you really want to bring people on board to help you get this, getting this book out there and positioning it correctly, but getting you to that final product and that final positioning. You want to align yourself with people and work with people who are really going to push you to the point that you really don't like them. I've said this before about my editor. I love my editor, but sometimes she'll send me back, and she's currently editing 5-Minute Book Marketing for Authors, which is my next book. I expect to get that back and for me to send a text to Amy and say, I really hate my editor.
Yep.
Because you really want to surround yourself with people. Writing is a very isolating profession. Like, I get it. It's like you sit behind your computer, do all the things. You read some threads on, Reddit or whatever, and you think that you've got it handled. And the problem is that the more that you can surround yourself with people who can really give you some smart, crucial, significant feedback that's going to change the course of your book, the better that your book will do. But also, you've got to be willing to dig in and do that research as well and get to know your market. Empower yourself with that knowledge. That is one of the best things that you can do. What did we not cover?
No, I think we covered all of it, honestly. I think that the main overarching idea is that you really, instead of focusing on trying to keep up with the bestsellers and the best-selling authors, one, make sure you're super confident about who your reader is. Because again, I sound like a broken record, but once you know who your reader is and what they're looking for, I assure you everything else you do will make a lot more sense, and you're going to feel a lot more confident that the effort that you're putting into any marketing or exposure is actually going to work for you, which takes a huge load off, right? I mean, there's already so much uncertainty in this industry, and it's already super hard to compete. Knowing that you're doing all the right things to the best of your ability is something that everybody listening deserves, and starting with knowing who your readers are is key.
Well, but the other reason that this is important is that marketing can be time intensive, and it can also cost you quite a bit of money. And you can spend a lot of money doing a lot of things that aren't really serving your market. So the clearer that you can be on all of the pieces that we talked about in the show today, the less that you're going to spend on things that really aren't serving where you want your book to go. So that's the other piece of it, though, too. This is also a money-saving show. Not only that, we just covered it all. I love that. I love this show.
I know. This was one of my favorite topics we've done in a while, because it really gives everybody something super straightforward to focus on, which is always the goal.
Yeah, exactly. Once again, we love reviews wherever you listen to podcasts. Text the word podcast to 888-402-8940. Let us know what you thought of the show. Give us show ideas. Send us your questions. We love to answer them. We went a little bit long on this show, so we don't have time today. But we do have your questions for next time. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye.